Welcome to Keiser Voices, the story of success, brought to you by Keiser University Graduate School, here where the academic world meets personal triumph. Join us today as we dive into the captivating tales of success.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Keiser Voices, as we continue our conversation this month on international education. Joining us today, one of our esteemed faculty members from the Education Department, Dr. Stephen Roth. Dr. Roth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much also, Heather and Adriana. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be on this very prestigious podcast. I've seen a few of them and they're quite interesting and so well done, so professional. And having the opportunity to be on as well is an honor for me and something as a Keiser employee and a member of the faculty. It's something that we always love to do, being out there and talking a little bit about our past, our experiences, and some of our expertise. Thank you.
Before we really get into the nitty-gritty of our topic, I want to start by asking you, what has your experience with international education been like through your career or even personally?
Well, international education, I think, is part of my DNA. I've lived out of the country, out of the States for more than half of my life, living, teaching, working, being very involved in admissions, as a matter of fact, out of the States and sending students to the States to study, not just to the States, but also to the UK and in Europe in my past. Having taught in international schools, religious schools, all type of religious schools in Latin America, and then of course living and working in China, which was the People's Republic of China, which was one of the highlights of my career. Never would I have thought in my wildest dreams that I would be in that position, and it was just an opportunity that I just could not turn down, and part of me as an international educator and having the ability to work with so many different people from all over the world and different students. And it's one thing about it being an international education, people are so different, so many cultures, so many races and religions, but we're really all the same. They want to be successful. They want to gain knowledge. They want to learn as much as they can and maybe even and leave their country and travel to other places. So I think that's been a dominant trend in my life, trend pattern really, because from when I was 6 years old, I was living in Italy, post-war Italy, and going to school in Italy in an American school. And there it really hasn't stopped. I just during my period of life in the military, I traveled also all over the world, and I came back and found myself living in Latin America for many years, and then found myself living in China for a number of years. So I mean, it's something that it's very interesting to think about when you say, well, you never know where life's going to take you. There are so many windows of opportunity, and then when one opens, I've taken them. And sometimes I haven't taken those windows of opportunity and took others. So in that way, my focus has always been on international education. I've taught English all over the world, and I love teaching English. And even in my classes today in the graduate school, I'm teaching English to my students, reviewing their papers. So I mean, I think that's one of the things I love about the job. It just keeps you so active, intellectually active all the time.
That's amazing, some of those unique opportunities that you have had thus far in your career. When it comes to students, how does studying abroad help to enhance both their personal and academic growth?
Well, studying abroad is a unique opportunity that I would always recommend for students to take, no matter where it is. Naturally, you don't want to go to a place that is not secure and that would not provide that integrity that you need to be able to study and enjoy where you're moving to. One, I think, of the many positive benefits of studying abroad is the ability to obtain a cultural awareness and adaptability to other people, to other cities, other languages, other customs, and it broadens your cultural understanding of other people. It gives also students an independence and the ability to have some feeling of self-reliance. It's on them. They're not, you're going home to mommy, you're being in the dorm. It's in a whole different place. And it's different support systems. It also enhances language and communication skills. Being able to communicate in another language of perhaps of which you don't even know very much of is just incredible to be able to gain that expertise in learning about language, not just your own language, but so many others. Studying in a non-native language is an opportunity that you cannot turn down. When I lived in China, it was very, very difficult to communicate in Chinese, one of the most difficult languages in the world, with 47,000 sounds. How can we even begin to understand that language? And it's so hard. And then you say, gee, how do babies learn Chinese language with so many thousands of sounds? But they do. So, also studying abroad, the ability to have academic and individual growth. This is so important that you can't just obtain that studying in your own hometown or even in a city, perhaps that you move to study away from home, because this is a way to grow. It's a way to learn. This is a way to meet different people and to have a different perspective on life, a global perspective. And you can't gain that studying in, let's say, in a community college or your own college at home. You have to be able to go out. You have to travel. Travel is so important, not just academically, but just getting out and meeting different people, and then seeing, like I said, how everybody is so different. I have three daughters, and they're beautiful daughters, and they are so different, so different in every possible way. And imagine people in different countries. So that intellectual and academic growth is something that is a tremendous positive attribute, I think, to studying abroad. That's why I would always recommend it.
You touched on a couple of things there that I kind of want to bring up because it kind of leads into my next question. And that's about challenges that students could possibly face when studying abroad. I know you mentioned culture and you mentioned language, but what are some of the challenges that a student might face, if they choose to study abroad? I mean, there's a lot of great opportunities, don't get me wrong.
Well, I think there are many challenges, and not to be taken lightly. Obviously, the challenge of adjusting to all of this cultural changes that I mentioned. There's a culture shock, no matter where you go. So even if you go to the UK, which England, Scotland, any of the areas in the UK to study, they speak English, but they speak English in very, very different dialects, let's say. Although sometimes when you meet a British person, you say, I just love your accent. And they say, we don't have the accent. You guys have the accent. And that's true. But trying to understand someone who is from Scotland, you have to really listen well because it's so different. So that there's a culture shock there that you will not be prepared for. And that's talking about the UK, where you speak pretty much the same language. If you're going to another country, whether it's anywhere in Europe, the language and their customs and folkways and mores are so different than ours. So just getting mentally prepared for that, I think takes some studying, some research. Something else that occurs specifically in those first few weeks, that's homesickness. People get homesick. Typically, those who do study abroad programs are younger. Perhaps they're in their second or third year of college. And being away from home, perhaps for the first time, Being in a homestay or a dorm with people from other countries and perhaps with different languages, you get homesick. I mean, this is the reality. You want to be with your friends. You're calling all the time. You're on social media, but it's not the same thing. Language barriers are also a tremendous hindrance, I think, uh, or obstacle, because sometimes when you speak to someone in another language, they may be very friendly and very flexible because they know you're understanding their language and trying to speak their language with them. But sometimes they're not very understanding, and they can be sometimes somewhat rude. So that's something that one has to take into consideration and try to learn the language of the country or countries you're going to be visiting. Very important. Having just one language is not enough today in our global society. If I could, I would have studied French earlier, or Chinese, or Japanese, and German. I speak Spanish, of course, and that has opened up many, many doors to me in my life, and in every way possible. But there's other obstacles too about studying abroad. There's a financial strain. It's an expensive opportunity, as well as being a wonderful opportunity to study and meet people and travel while you're in different countries. But it costs money, and you must have the financial wherewithal that your family is providing or the university providing. But you're going to be on a budget. You're going to be on a very, very tight budget. And you have to know that there are limited funding opportunities when you do study abroad. So you have to be prepared for that. Living abroad is expensive. We think that life is expensive here in the States, and it is. But that's going to be doubled when you study abroad. There's also very different academic pressures and programs that you have to become used to. I have, in one of my classes, one of my students is living in the UK right now, and he's working in a school. It is not like our school system. Our K through 12 system is pretty refined, elementary, middle, and high school. Not like theirs. Theirs is totally different. Theirs much more career focused. And so if you're not aware of that, and the university programs that are offered in study abroad type of opportunities are also very different. You have to be prepared to understand some of the differences in how professors are, how students are in classroom. There's not that much engagement like we have here in our classes in different parts of the world. I remember when I was in China as the director of a program, the first AP program, advanced placement program in China, and teaching as well. Students did not want to speak in the classroom. So if you're in that type of milieu, you feel kind of odd. Why don't they, want to participate in class? Because there are different cultural reasons for them not wanting to do so. In many ways, Chinese are very concerned with respect and with face. If they say something in some type of discussion and it's not correct, or they think it's not correct, they think they lose face and lose respect from their classmates. Therefore, this does not allow them to be very engaged in conversations. And for students who want to come to the States, they have to be prepared to be very engaged in classroom discussions on ground programs, because that's very, very important here. Making friends and social integration when you're studying abroad is also something that is not a slam dunk. Everybody has their own lives. People may want to be with you or not. Sometimes students feel isolated and feel like it's hard to make friends, especially in a different culture, a different language. Sometimes it's better to have a roommate who speaks your own language and maybe from your own country, so that you have someone that you can immediately bond with and travel with, because that's important in these programs. Airfare in most of Europe and other nations of the world is much more inexpensive on short flights. And distances, especially in Europe, where so many students go, are very short distances to different countries, totally different countries. But getting around is not that easy if you don't know the language and if you're alone. So it's always best to go with someone. Also, the feeling of security, and being safe. You have to be very careful when you travel abroad, especially females. Um, in different nations of the world, uh, men feel very different towards females regarding their personal integrity than they do here. So that has to be taken into consideration. That is a serious challenge, and really to go to nations that are seemingly liberal, but really may not be very liberal. Some of the countries of the Middle East, uh, they seem like a great place to go and learn and study from. But being a female may be a very, very different story.
So those are all important challenges that definitely need to be considered. Um, how do you see international education becoming more inclusive?
Well, today in education, in let's say on the global uh, aspect, there's a movement towards more inclusion. Naturally, demographics play a great part in it. Demographics, let's say, of Latin America. Uh, Not everyone has the opportunity that we have here in our country. If you want to go to school, higher education, let's say, um, you can get a federal loan pretty much, or other types of loans, or there are ways that one can go to college, especially community colleges, is not that expensive. But that's not the same story in many parts of the world, especially Latin America, Africa, let's say third world countries that aren't as developed industrially as we are here. I do think that's changing, and it's good that it's changing because there has been more diverse funding options and ways for financial support and scholarships in let's say Latin America, and in different parts of Africa as well, but not everywhere. So this fact that institutions and organizations or the government, like we have here in the United States, offers the ability to access higher education is one thing. It's much, much better, of course, in industrialized nations such as in Asia and in Europe, Western Europe, because they do have flexible programs. There are more loan options being available for the population. There are also funding for non-traditional programs that are coming up as well. There are virtual programs that also provide students the ability, like we have here in Keiser, of studying towards undergraduate degree, graduate degrees, even doctorates, which has changed education completely. Naturally, we had online education and the let's say the first decade or so of year 2000, but since the pandemic, this has exploded, and I've been teaching online here at Keiser for 15 years, and I have a number of international students, and I've always had them. So that is very important in providing more ability for inclusion of different demographics in education. And that's one of the things that we see as well for groups that are needy, let's say, with special disabilities. We are seeing a movement toward taking this much more into consideration in the world, in Europe, and specifically various nations in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in certain countries, of course, in Africa, and definitely in Asia, where there's more of a consensus of taking these people and permitting them, giving them the opportunity to access programs through government funded programs or or other organizations as well. So it is not as if the world is coming up to the level of the United States in having a mindset of inclusion in international education, but they are working on it, and it has made great progress recently.
And then before we let you go, I have one more question I really wanted to ask you about, especially as your role as an online educator. You've been with Keiser for, like you said, online for 15 years, so you have this vast experience. From when you started and to even to now, maybe looking towards the future, what role does Keiser play in making study abroad opportunities accessible to a diverse population of possible students?
Well, I'll tell you, having the privilege of working in Keiser for 15 years and working online uh, has been a very unique opportunity for me and for our thousands of students who passed by us. But recently, I am absolutely stunned at how Kaiser is expanding. Okay, we have had the campus in Shanghai for some time, and now also the campus in Nicaragua for a number of years as well. But the fact that we have also opening up campuses in Ecuador, in Peru, in Spain, in China, uh, in Indonesia, and in Singapore, and these things are absolutely astounding at what Kaiser is doing and providing the ability of having students study in these nations and then perhaps come to our campuses here in the States or continuing or having our students having the ability to travel there and study, as well as programs that professors and faculty can perhaps do some visiting professor opportunities there as well. Kaiser is on the cutting edge in lots of places, that's for sure. International education, we can see that as well. Vietnam, can you imagine? In Spain, the American College in Marbella in Spain. I mean, I'd love to teach there myself.
No, we
So I
can't
mean,
lose you.
and I think I'm going to talk to some perhaps Dr. Kaiser or Dean or Duengo on that because I do like Spain very much. But in any event, I think that Kaiser offers so many different types of fields of study, practical fields of study, and that's always been one of the main attractions of studying at Kaiser. You're going to be in a degree program that's going to be worthwhile for you. You're going to have social mobility, and that's what people want, whether they're studying here or in Vietnam or Shanghai or in Lima. They want social mobility. They want to learn. They want to have the ability to raise a family, but having it being a professional and having that degree that in many cases they're the first ones in their family to have a college education. And that's, I think, what Kaiser has afforded not only to our students here in Florida and in the entire country, because we have students from all over the nation here, but now reaching out to students in China to come here. I remember there were many students who came from China in those early years, but the Nicaragua campus is doing so well, and now going abroad and doing it there and offering our courses and our student first philosophy there. That's incredible. I'm really of a thought that this is the way to go. Kaiser isn't just a state program or a national program, we're an international program. And that is something that not everybody can do or wants to do. But Kaiser University and its faculty, staff, and administration have always been very forward looking. And I, as let's say a senior faculty member, have never felt more intellectually challenged and engaged as I have been in these 15 years, but also these last years. I have incredible students, and I hope to continue to serve them and serve Kaiser well into the future.
Amazing. And it's been incredible having this conversation with you. We're so fortunate to have gotten such valuable insights from somebody who's lived the experiences themselves with international education. So, Dr. Roth, thank you so much for joining us today on Keiser Voices. We really appreciate having this conversation.
Well, Heather, thank you so much again. I know we had an interview a few months ago, and Adriana, of course. I cherish my affiliation, and I am an advocate, and I'll always be one. And thank you again. And please do not hesitate to invite me back at any time. I hope I didn't talk your head off here too much. Like an old sailor here, I can't stop talking about something that I love. And again, I thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you, sir. And if you guys have enjoyed this episode as much as we have, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Keiser Voices as we continue our month conversation about international education.
Thank you for journeying with us today on Keiser Voices, the story of success. As we close this chapter, remember every story has its next page.